So, are you sure you've got enough hours on the night to talk about your career? That's
I'm going to have to cut a few stories a bit short because I started. You know what I'm like. If I start talking about football, I never stop. So it's. I just since I've agreed to do these shows, it's been great for me to think back at stories and talking to people. Something else has triggered another story, and so I'm writing them down now because at my age I forget everything, don't you? So I'm writing these stories, and it's good to not just in my time at Cardiff, but to think about the stories I had with Wenger, and Ferguson, even going back to my start of my career where I was at Notts County, and I had a few luncheons with Brian Clough, the Brian Clough, who was my idol. So it's going to be nice to be able to tell a few stories, and I just want to make people laugh and find it interesting evening.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be because you've got so many stories to tell. And you mentioned Brian Clough as well because I always refer to you as like there's Brian Clough and then there's you.
That's very good. I'm very honoured to that. That'll do me.
And you come from that sort of calibre, that stable, let's say, of manager. Yeah. And you no holds barred, but you also you got experience and you respect people, but also you don't take any shit.
No, I think you've got to. I think you've got to set your stall out really. And I'll be on the evening. I'll be saying I learned a lesson at Gainsborough Trinity early doors where somebody tried to tell me who to pick the side, and I realised at the early stage I've got to do my own thing if I want to survive. And so I've learned it all the time. What I've tried to do is wherever I've gone, I've tried to leave the club in a better place.
Yeah.
And I think that's all you can do as a manager. You're going to make mistakes, but I think if you can leave the club in a better place, and I believe that I've done that everywhere I've gone, really.
Yeah. And can you believe it's 1,602, 1,603 games you've managed?
3.
1,603. You would know. I know. I got 602, but I know it was like an extra game, so 603. Can you believe that in that record? I don't think it'll be beaten. I don't think.
I can't see it now. No disrespect to managing now, but with your likes of yourself and social media, etc., everybody's an expert now. Everybody picks the team better than you. Everybody does substitutions better than you. You lose, in that when I first started, I wanted 2 or 3 years to build a club. Now you get 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, when I look back at my days at Scarborough and like Gainsborough, Cardiff, if you'd have told me then that I would have been breaking a record, and I just can't see it being beaten. I thought when I got to my 1,000th game, that was at the Emirates against Wenger. I never thought I'd end up with 1,603. It's an amazing. My dad and my mum and dad will be ever so proud of where I am and what I've done. But I've enjoyed it. And as you know, the way I manage, I've had ups and downs and confrontations, etc. But I think what I think gives me a lot of pride is when I've gone to a club, they've said, well, I didn't like you, Warnock, before you come here, but I'm glad you're here now. I think that's about the best compliment I could get.
Oh, and when it comes to referees, and I know I've only got a short amount of time with you, and I know you'll be honest, but do you think a lot of referees have been put on pedestals too highly, and how much is that due to the TV money and the Premiership over the years?
I just think it's how they are. They have an ego themselves, and my dad used to be a top referee, and my dad used to say, I know I've had a good game when nobody mentions me.
Yeah.
Whereas it's almost like they have to be mentioned nowadays to justify the position, etc. I've never been a big fan of Mike Riley, who's in charge now. I had him referee me when I was playing at Hartlepool, and managing. I was managing there. That's right. And I never forget. He ran away at the end of the game. Didn't see me. I had to chase him over a car park. But he was what do you call it now? A robot referee. He knew the rules inside out, but he had no feeling about common sense and talking to people. And that's how his referees are a lot of the time. In fact, the only one coming through the last couple of years has been a lad called Gillett. And he's from Australia. He's come over here, but he was the nearest one I've had that I think that's going to be a top class referee.
Yeah. And are there any referees that you've had to completely change your squad tactics once you've known who the ref was ahead of the game, knowing that that individual was known for holding grudges based on what you may have done comments wise to him or any of his other referees that he's worked with, that are part of the
Not really, because I'd have been doing that every week.
Yeah.
I've been talking about them with the referee every week, really. I mean, I used to obviously ask my secretary to tell me on a Monday who we'd got on the Saturday, and then I remember, can you remember him that when he refereed in there? I mean, I've had a couple of run-ins with certain referees, I mean, when I was at Sheffield United, Graham Poll was, my semi-final where he intercepted a ball which ended up with a winning goal, which nowadays the rule would have changed now. And then Craig Pawson, I've had 2 games against Chelsea. I think I've been fined about 30 grand altogether at both games. I didn't realise it the second time when I got fined that it was Craig Pawson that fined in the first, And I remember at Palace saying we had a lad booked early doors, and then John Terry did a worse foul, and he didn't book him. And John Terry puts his arm round Pawson, and they get away with it. And I said, look, if that had been one of my lads, he would have been booked. I think that was 15 grand, something like that. So when I see Craig Pawson now, I think, well, I hope you don't get him against Chelsea, pal.
And any of these referees, have you bumped into them since you've left the game? I know it's only been quite recent. You've never bumped into anyone who's on any TV or radio work?
No, the places I go to, you wouldn't find referees.
Okay.
Because people have to have a personality where I go.
Yeah, I like that. And I've got to talk about Cardiff and Emiliano Sala. And so what convinced you not to walk away from football at the time? Because I know you considered retirement when that happened, and it was so sad.
It was probably the most difficult period, because it just brought home that football wasn't, it's only a game of football. For the, looking back, there were periods. It was very difficult. So I had to run the whole club. All the players and fans were all, devastated. So I had to really take over at a time where I needed help as well. I mean, at the time, you probably don't realise that you need to help. You need talking to somebody. But it was a difficult period because I was convinced, from a personal point of view, that he would have got us the goals that would have kept us up. So that's why, from that footballing side. But from a family point of view, having met his mum and dad and sister, it was a difficult time, because it could have been anybody. It could have been our own son. Everybody thought it could have been my lad. To have a life cut short like that. It was, and the fans were brilliant. The games after that, I remember, I think we went to Arsenal or somewhere, and they were just fantastic. It was, that's probably as bad a time in football, really. I didn't feel like I didn't do anything for about a week. I wasn't bothered about anything. And if I'd have felt like that much longer, I would have called it a day.
I think you've said before that your time at Cardiff is one of the best of your career. Was that mainly due to the fans, the owner, or the location where you lived? 'Cause I think you used to live not far from me. I live in Marcos. I think you lived in Ogmore.
We lived at Ogmore. Yeah. I loved it.
So you lived, it's not too far at all.
Well, you see, I used to always switch off and get off home and take the dogs for a walk, or get on the bikes. We used to have electric bikes, and all around this coast there. It was fabulous. So it was good to switch off from football. But Cardiff's always been that kind of my kind of club. When I used to get off at Ninian Park all them days ago, same guy with all his hair and I've never known his name. He's always been there when I get off, and he's always saying, "Why don't you manage our club, Warnock?" in his Welsh accent, by the way. And I've always said, "Because you never asked me." So when I did take over, it was great to see him, and I said, "Look, leave it with me. I'm going to do my best." But they're my kind of fans. I call it a bunch of nettles from Yorkshire, and they don't suffer fools gladly. That's why when I asked the commercial department when I was manager, I want to go out into the valleys. I want to go to, I think it was, where was it, Pontypridd, was it?
Pontypridd.
Yeah, I want to go to these places.
It's Tom Jones' country.
I remember she said, the girl in the commercial, "Are you sure? No manager wants to go out in the valleys." But I did. I went out. I did 3 or 4 of them, and I really enjoyed them. Yeah. Because I always classed myself as just down to earth, football manager, football person, really. And I like talking to the guy on the terraces. So as well as all the the prawn crackers, the brigade.
Well, that's the grassroots thing, isn't it? Obviously, you played, lower league as a player, and then you obviously managed. I think you were at Burton for 5 years because my wife's side, they're Burton Albion season ticket holders.
Wow, yeah.
And we used to go up there the other week, so I know you were there for
Yeah,
5
yeah,
years.
I was, yeah.
So you've gone from playing the lower leagues, and obviously you've gone into the Premiership as
Yeah.
a manager. So you've started, obviously, you got that grassroots sort of, I don't know,
mentality.
mentality.
Yeah, it is, and I enjoy that. I used to do the same things for Burton. I used to go out into the pubs, play darts and dominoes and things like that. And I spoke to Burton chairman this week. I never forget where you don't. My dad used to say, "Don't mess on anybody on your way up because you'll pass them on your way down," and it always stood me in good stead. That. But yeah, I'd like to think that, as I've said, even the people that don't like me a number of times have said, well, I didn't like you, Warnock. Like I say, didn't like you, Warnock, but I'm glad you're here now. So it's that's why I'm looking forward to doing these evening withs, because it's going to be nice they'll be able to ask me a question or two as well on the evening, and it'll be nice for me to tell a few stories and good times. If I enjoy it, I want to do a few at places like I didn't get a good reception, like Bristol or Portsmouth or Ipswich, or I want to do one of them,
Or Forest and
yeah. But I think we're going to do one in Nottingham, even though I think we asked the Forest. He was a Forest fan, wasn't he? He wasn't too keen, but I'm sure Forest fans would want to come and ask me a question.
Yeah, I'm sure. They respect you. Football's football, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got you a question which would probably be asked on the night, but who was your biggest find for non-league football?
You see, when you talk to me now, I'll have to make a list because I'm going to get asked this question, aren't I? A few times, but straight off my top of my head, I cannot really give you an answer to that. I've had some that have done well, and then I've had some that really have fell by the wayside, But there are players, non-league that are good enough, and it's just a matter of persevering. They've got to persevere, really. For example, when I was here, I took Mendes Leng, who'd come from non-league, and he was going to go to Rochdale, and I took him, and really he was instrumental in helping us get promotion. Was Mendes? I know he had a difficult period later on, being suspended, etc., which hopefully he's overcome that now. But people like him, it gives you a lot of satisfaction when you bring somebody up from the lower regions and they play like that for you.
And do you still think non-league has the hidden gems like if the Stuart Pearceys of the time, or Ian Wright or Jimmy Vardy? Do you still think there are the hidden gems there?
Yeah, I think there are. It's just obviously now it's absolutely saturated with scouts now, and you're getting lads at 7 years. I mean, I think somebody was telling me under 6, under 7s now playing football. I mean, I'll never forget when I first started, and there was a coach in my local team taking under 12s and teaching them how to play offside. Coaching's about improving that session, not looking too far ahead with coaching. But there are players that start late, that probably don't go into football till later on. For one reason or another, and then there's players that just need an opportunity. It's whether you have a go. I like the lad Williams last year. I missed out on him at Boreham Wood, and just missed out on him, and he went to Huddersfield, and he's doing brilliant. Thomas, and he's doing brilliant, and I could have had him. And I took another lad from Billericay, Olisana, and I thought he'd got a chance, and he's at Middlesbrough now. So I think there are players who down there, you just need the opportunity.
Yeah. You've gained promotion to the Premiership 3 times. I know it's 3 times. I'm just trying to check my head. Now you're here, I'm thinking it's 3 times. And obviously with Sheffield United being your boyhood club, the team you love, and would that be the pinnacle when you got them for the Premiership?
It was the pinnacle at the time, because I'd been there. I was there 7 years, and when I went there, I think the crowd before I took over, they got beat by Port Vale, and the crowd was 8,300 at Bramall Lane. And when I left, the average crowd was 25,500, and we'd built a new stadium almost. We'd got a brand new training ground. And so I felt that I'd contributed to the club itself, growing up as a boy, from running under the turnstiles and up the cop with my dad to managing the club. You know, I never forget when I took over managing the club. I just drove there, and I think I was there nearly 2 hours in the car park, just looking at Sheffield United, thinking about mum and dad and what my dad would have, how we used to run up that cop, because he worked 16-hour shifts, my dad, at English Steel, and so we didn't get there till late. Then he'd lift me up on his shoulder and at the back of the crowd, and boy, come in, and he used to pass me down. See you at the end of the game, and pass me down. And my dad used to pick me up at the end of the game. I mean, you couldn't do that now, but you know, so to be like that and then to manage the club was fantastic. And Derek Dooley was my chairman. He was a fabulous man. So yeah, it was good to get him up at the end. I think when we got promotion that year, we I can't remember the celebration then, that one, but I know that we were going to go out for a meal, but we couldn't find a restaurant that got a table. We ended up getting a kebab from a local shop. And I remember saying to him, "There's not many Premier League managers having a kebab now, is there, from a takeaway?"
Oh man, I only wish you were the England manager at one point in your career. I just think
Somebody mentioned that many years ago, but I'm afraid I'd said the wrong things. I'm not. You've got to be the right type, haven't you?
Well, Gareth's very, very squeaky clean, isn't he?
Yeah, but I think Gareth. I think it's a made to measure appointment, Gareth. I don't think we could have anybody better than Gareth, because we've got so many young kids, and he's very good with young kids, and he's given opportunity, and I think I'm not sure managing a football team week in, week out is his best forte. I know he left at Middlesbrough, but I think with England, I don't think there's anybody better. I think he's done a fabulous job, mate. So I think it just fits. It fits like a glove, that.
I've got to ask you, you've had promotion from, your first one was in '87 with Scarborough, and obviously your last one was Premier League with Cardiff, and obviously 6 in between them two. How hard was it breaking any dreams for players that just didn't make the cut for the higher league? You know, at the end of the season, when you're all celebrating, you got promotion, and then you've got to then decide on the new team for the next season. You obviously have some players go out on loan, or some get released.
You do. I think in general, you give the lads an opportunity. Okay. You know, in deep down the positions you need to strengthen, and you try and strengthen, but you know that they've earned that right to be in your squad next year, and it's up to them then to show if they're good enough. So I don't think many have been cast out when I've got promotion. I think they've had an opportunity, and then it's been up to them to lift the level. Because that is the hardest part, I think, telling people that, you're releasing them, etc.
And last question, how do you deal with time wasters? Because I know in football, you're Premiership, you've got many players that get renowned for being time wasters, and through your career you obviously would have had quite a few guys that have been late for training or whatever, and maybe not had the personality you wanted of player. How did you, or maybe you've got any examples of how the funniest thing you've dealt, you've often done with somebody, or the biggest fine, or I don't know, or the retort you've had from them when they've said, "Oh, I'm not a time waster," and you're like,
I thought you meant at first time wasting on the field of play.
No, sorry, I meant like for training. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you've just got to have rules. That's all. Yeah. A number of times, say away from home, and we're training the morning of a match or something like that, and you're on the bus for 9:45, or are you with me to go training, and somebody turns at 10:50. I don't have to say anything. The lads just clap as he gets on the bus, and then he pays his fine to my assistant usually, and then we usually, I think it's all been passed on to children charities and things like that at Christmas. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But no, I think players know when they've overstepped. You've got to have discipline. You've got to have fines for certain things, but I don't think we've ever had much of that really. The lads that I deal with are pretty regular, and they adhere to it. Time wasting on the pitch is a different thing. Now it's a common thing now, because referees, everybody knows if they put 3 minutes, I don't know where they get it from, but they put 3 to 4 minutes up and you've wasted 10. and then you waste another 3 or 4 minutes in the injury time, and they still blow on the time. So it's everybody does it now, whether you like it or not. Everybody does it, and that will continue.
And what are you going to miss? No, before you end, what are you going to miss the most from the game? What have you missed?
The buzz, the adrenaline. I used to eat a breakfast about 8:30, and then I couldn't eat till 6 o'clock. Couldn't eat anything till after the game, and the hour before the game, the butterflies. Oh dear me, from 10 o'clock onwards, and then as soon as the whistle went, all right as rain. Then as soon as the whistle went, and then it's all the most pleasing thing I miss is Sheffield United when we used to win a game. I'd say a few words after, and then they'd all go out for a warm down, and I'd go and get in a slipper bath, and the kit man used to bring me a cup of tea. Oh, a lovely cup of tea. And I used to lay back and think of all the kids like me when I was a kid, all going home happy. Yeah, they've seen goals, they've seen shots, they've seen crosses, they've seen goalkeepers, they've seen referees have a mare, and I think you've got to just make it exciting. I've always wanted to make it exciting.
That you have. Well, thank you for your time, Neil, honestly.
No problem.